All right, Jeff, we are 2 days away from the NFL draft, so I'll ask you a similar question that I asked you last week, but now that we're closer, are you starting to get any more of a sense of how the Eagles may play this thing on Thursday in the first round?
Maybe, and maybe on a little more information on certain players that I think maybe they'll have more interest in than others. It's just so tough with 31 teams picking ahead of them to really make any prediction. And I think, you've been hearing it more recently. Teams have done a better job of kind of covering what they're going to do. But this draft is obviously up for grabs because the quarterback's a little uncertainty about, how teams are rating them or not. And a lot of times that decides on how the first round will go, how many quarterbacks are taken and how many are taken early.
You've told us before, Jeff, that Cam Jurgens was in line and that it was going to come eventually, and it finally did. So who's at the top of the line now for a next extension?
Well, I think again, in that draft, the way it was set up was, certainly that Cam would be the guy this year because he didn't have the fifth-year option that Jordan Davis does have. I don't think they're going. We'll see what happens with Jordan Davis. They have to figure out here in these next few days or sometime before next week whether they're going to pick up his fifth-year option. Excuse me, but then I guess you look to next year. At this point, the guys that from the following year's draft and whether they're going to want to extend any of those guys. I don't, I guess the one guy that I would really key in on is probably Reed Blankenship. Reed's going into the final year of his deal. They extended him last offseason because he's an undrafted rookie. They had the ability to do that. But my guess is they're going to want to get him locked up and probably will do it sometime this offseason.
Obviously, it depends on how the draft board falls, but how aggressive do you think the Eagles will be if they see somebody that they like that they think will go earlier? Do you expect at all a potential trade-up from the Philadelphia Eagles? Picks 26 and 27 seem to be the ones that keep on coming up in conversation.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think maybe a few months ago there was a lot of chatter about trading back out because that's what they had done 7 years ago when they traded the 32nd pick, which happened to be Lamar Jackson. And got Dallas Goedert, and the other pick they used Devontae Maddox in the second round of 2019. They picked up a pick there, and they still could do that. I think there's a lot of options that are in play, but I think the name that I know they love Walter Nolan. There's some character questions about him. From what I gather, they're not as concerned about those, but I just don't. I think it'll be hard to move up to get him. I just don't see him dropping that far. There could be a few other guys that would be in play for them to move up on, but that's again, as Howie said last week, they didn't think that Quinyon Mitchell. They thought he would have to be someone they have to move up for, and ended up being that they didn't have to move up for him. They have their guys, they have them targeted, and then the guys, the value chart based, what the value chart will dictate to them whether they should move up for someone or not. It, could depend on someone drops, and there are a few guys that there are questions about character, and maybe the Eagles have done all the work and they don't feel as concerned about those. Maybe they'll be inclined to move up for them.
Love it when you see the other teams in the division scrambling to play catch up. Do you have any idea about where you think the Commanders could go, or that are the Commanders still like one of the most prominent threats you believe in the NFC?
Absolutely, the Commanders. I have no idea. I mean, I barely know what the Eagles are. I don't even know what the Eagles are going to know, let alone the Commanders.
I got to think a wide receiver, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, the smart teams don't pick for position. They don't pick for needs. They just pick good players in the building.
I didn't assume them as smart, those Commanders.
Well, they beat the Eagles last year and could have nearly beat them in the postseason. I don't know. So, obviously they beat them pretty good.
Sure.
Whatever. And the Commanders they did a lot of the off season. I'm not entirely sure some of the moves they made. I felt like they were adding too many guys. They're kind of on the downslopes of their careers. But that being said, that'd be the team I think I'd be most worried about. The Cowboys. have their issues as well, but if they're healthier than they were last year, certainly they're a team to worry about. And the Eagles, look, they lost players. The schedule's going to get tougher. Nothing's guaranteed.
Jeff, we don't like to waste people's time on this show talking about A.J. Brown trades because it's not going to happen. But we know that Dallas Goedert could potentially be on the move. Bryce Huff, obviously a name that's mentioned as well. Is there any other veterans that you could see maybe not on this Eagles roster? Obviously, a lot of people were shocked by the move of Chauncey Gardner-Johnson a couple months ago. Any other names that you will still keep an eye on?
Well, look, when I say, when you mention A.J. Brown, like one thing I've learned doing this job is never say never, right? I mean, everybody's got a price tag. The trade that was proposed for someone who floated out there is just on the surface. It just doesn't make much sense at all. I'm not saying that A.J. Brown couldn't be traded. I mean, Jalen Hurts could be traded if someone came in and said, "Hey, we got 10 first rounders," and, whatever.
Right?
So,
no, of course, yeah.
Right. So, so that's why people can go out there and float out bogus rumors because anything is possible. And look, whatever. But yeah, I mean, I find it extremely, from what I understand, it's extremely unlikely that A.J. Brown is going anywhere, and understandably so. Dallas, yeah, I mean, look, we've been talking about this all off season, right? I mean, the way the contract is set up, it doesn't benefit them to bring him back the way they look at it, $14.5 million for a tight end, which is understandable, right? And for Dallas, he's going to have to look at he's going to have to be able to look at what the Eagles are offering versus what he potentially get somewhere else if he's traded, right? Because the team that trades for him is probably going to want to give him a new contract. So a lot of it falls on Dallas, the same way it did on Josh Sweat last year. And Josh Sweat decided, you know what, I'll come back. I'll take, a guaranteed contract. I'll take a little less. And it paid off for him. So, and Dallas may want to may agree to something a little bit more in terms of number of years, in which are guaranteed. But he's just they can't afford the way the contract is structured to pay him that amount of money. And whether they should have been in that situation or not, that's an argument for another day. In terms of guys that potentially could be on the market, I haven't looked beyond Dallas, but the C.J. Gardner-Johnson trade told us anything that, and we just talked about this. Anybody's expendable, and if you have the wherewithal to go get someone that they think at a position that they really need, and I still think edge rusher is a position that I would be keyed on to see the Eagles upgrade, whether it's through the draft or through trade. They'll do it.
All right, Jeff. Listen, man, we appreciate it.
Buddy.
Drink some tea.
Is it the allergies, or did you get a cold?
I've been talking a lot. I did the podcast, a little under the weather, so I'll survive.
Big podcast week with the draft.
Yeah, we have an episode dropping. That we did two-parter on Howie. The second one drops later today or tomorrow morning.
I heard the first part of the Howie was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Everybody should listen.
Howie, a foodie. Yeah, this one's a little more Howie. And where Howie the GM. So.
I like that.
Well, check it out. Uncovering the Birds. It's fantastic, Jeff. Your work is fantastic. We appreciate the time
Jeff.
As always, man. Rest up, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, talk to you.
There is Jeff McLane on the Comcast Business Hotline.
A lot of you guys are battling with it.
Look, some of us are stretched. Hey, guys, Andrew Salciunas from Kincade and Salciunas. Thank you for checking out all of our stuff on YouTube. Make sure you click, like, subscribe on everything that you see. And, of course, you can see everything from our YouTube feed. Full shows, interviews, when John's being an idiot, which is like 15 times a day. So make sure you check out all of our stuff on YouTube. We appreciate it.